Welcome to Authentic with Brazil 201, and I'm your host, Brazil 201. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Pod Save America, well, specifically John Favreau versus Ken Martin interview, and how Ken Martin is a super soy boy cuck and still won't release the autopsy. Now, for those of you who don't know what the autopsy is a report to show everything that went wrong in the 2024 election. And there's been many quote unquote autopsies, whether it's the How to Win guys or the catalyst data and various other things. And a lot of them have a lot of overlapping things, whether it is Gaza, because Kamala was a woman, not going on Joe Rogan, the Democratic Party being anti-men, and all these other things that we all know are true, right? But what's interesting is, well, you know what? Let's just say Ken Martin should be outside the Marriott Inn. And I gotta say, you don't see me siding with the Favreau a lot, but it is interesting. So Fav, critiques Ken Martin's leadership, and he was kind of focusing on three areas. Like he was transparency. First of all, Ken Martin ran on his damn thing that I'm going to be the DNC chair and I'm going to release the autopsy. Not parts of the autopsy, but the full autopsy and just let people fight. So first, it's basically this lack of transparency in the bearing of the autopsy. John Favreau repeatedly, he keeps talking to like Ken Martin, who's a Soy Boy Cuck, on why he's refusing to release this full 200-page after action review, despite promising to do so during his campaign for the DNC chair. It is a broken promise, right? Favreau pointed out that Martin briefly called out the 2016 DNC's refusal to release its autopsy a mistake, and explicitly said, of course, it will be released regarding the 2024 version. Then he keeps saying the silver bullet rebuttal that Martin argued that people are only looking for a smoking gun or single reason for the loss. Fav was countering that a 200-page report clearly contains many nuanced lenses from the entire party, not just DNC. It should be allowed to discuss and operate, whether it is that federally women candidates can't do work. Was it because of Gaza? Why is the Democratic Party so bad with men? And things like this. And then obviously there's trust issues. Favreau noted that like high-level party members, including state chairs like Anderson Clayton, beautiful girl from North Carolina, just had to point that out, are frustrated and they feel like they're being denied the full picture of what like the DNC found. Next is, Ken Martin's actual chairmanship, right? And the financial management and debt. Favreau keeps mentioning the DNC's financial narrative, specifically this claim that the party is in a strong position. Um, the negative net cash. John keeps mentioning, he cites reports the public FEC statement that the DNC entered April with negative net cash on hand, noting that while they have like 14 million in cash, they carried 18.5 million in debt. And then comparing the committees between the DS Triple C and the DCCC and the individual syndicates are raising massive amounts of money and are matching republics, whereas the DNC itself seems heavily incompetent and is only entity struggling with debt and being significantly outraised by the RNC. And then that this is a cost of secrecy, right? He's talking about the bearing the obstacle has created a financial penalty where major donors are holding back because they haven't seen a clear accounting of the 2024 failures. Then there's the whole allocation strategy. Favreau keeps mentioning, and this is something I didn't know Ken Martin was doing, but Ken Martin's an absolute idiot. It's not about the 50 straight strategy, but he's giving 20 all 50 states plus Guam and a bunch of other bullshit are getting 20,000 monthly stipends to territories, right? Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and well as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, when certain states are more important. Guam and all sort, they have no purpose. Okay, their votes do not matter, and this is just nonsense. Okay, you can be realistic with this. Then this whole thing about the Harris fundraising list, Favreau scrutinized the fact that $6.5 million was spent to buy the Harris campaign fundraising list, and why the DNC had to pay such a high price for that data that the campaign and community were largely already sharing. And then he's talking about the Democratic insiders are using wins off-year elections to justify basically like what happened in 2022, which led to their loss in 2024, which, by the way, is something I truly think is going to happen because I think they'll do well in 26, and I don't think they learned their lesson in 2028. Okay? And maybe, with the VRA getting struck down in about a month and a lot of the black districts are going to be wiped off the map, whether it is by white liberals or by white Republicans are just going to be erased, and the bad policies of thinking like Jasmine Crockett and Karen Bass and Brandon Johnson and Jim Clyburn and all these fucking people who are not at all that the other people want will be wiped out. But it is. Ken Martin's a bitch. He should be outside the Marriott Inn, and hopefully Michael, what the fuck is who's the fucking ugly guy that was wanting to fight everyone outside Hampton? Then Michael Tracy. It is what it is. Yeah. By the way, Ken Martin keeps saying some stupid shit that he's building a permanent nationwide infrastructure, which isn't true, including like voter files and legal protection, which is nonsense. He acknowledges though that the RNC is that all the RNC, the Senate version, they're all doing better. But Ken Martin is an idiot, and he's a soy boy cuck, and you know what? Everyone should curse him out whenever they see him. Okay?